Hello, today me and my partner will be presenting our project, The Relationship Between School Priorities, School Diversity, and Student Performance in New York City High Schools. School choice is a student assignment mechanism that matches incoming high school freshmen to high schools every year. Because the mechanism factors in parents and students' opinion of which school they are willing to attend rather than assigning students to their districts, it adds fairness to the process, and it has been widely adopted across the U.S. The school choice system has been under intensive research in the last few years. Much research contributes to policy design, improving the mechanism. One example is the New York City Public Schools 2008 transformation from the Boston mechanism to the deferred acceptance mechanism. Under the deferred acceptance mechanism, incoming freshman students rank their most preferable schools, while schools use school priorities to filter students based on academic requirements, here shown on the left. One major purpose of this adaptation was to decrease racial segregation within schools by giving opportunities to underrepresented communities. Given the newly widespread use of this policy and potential importance of priority structures when allocating students, school priorities is considered an understudied subject overall, and its effect on student diversity and student performance remains ambiguous. Paper published by Hatfield in 2016 suggests that the mechanism is beneficial to student performance in the long term since it betters school quality by increasing competition between schools, while Kersel and Ullman suggested more specifically that school choices that emphasize less on academic benefited disadvantaged households and increased school diversity. Thus, our research will be focused on the relationship between school priorities, school diversities, and performance, aiming to answer these following questions. Is there a correlation between different school priorities and racial diversity of schools? What is the relationship between diversity, school priorities, and academic achievement? How will socioeconomic factors impact the school diversity and student performance? And what is the relationship between income and student achievement?
Three different priority structures were evaluated within this study: screen, educational option, and limited on-screened. Screen school evaluates students individually and choose their student based on academic performance, such as standardized test score. Limited on-screen school omits student by lottery and prioritize student in lottery that shows demonstrated interest, such as attending school fairs. Educational option, also known as that option, leave half of their seat for students that are subject to the lottery and the other half of the seat reserved for students who are ranking at the top of their school academically. In other words, an option is a hybrid of screen and limited on-screen school. Going from screen to limited on-screen, the focus on academics in omission decreases. The data we used from this study was obtained from the NYSE dataset for the school year 2014 to 2015, which was a sample of 13 out of the total 31 New York school districts to represent the various racial and socioeconomic demographics of New York. Two measurements of the racial diversity were used in this study. The minority concentration is the total percent of the school population that's considered a minority. The generalized variance index is a probability that two random selected individuals from the same school belong to different races. We can calculate the probability that two random selected individuals from a particular population belong to different subgroups. The closer the index gets to 1, the more evenly it is distributed by race and the more diverse the school is. We first look at the relationship between school priorities and school racial diversity. Screen school has significantly higher GV index compared to an option and limited on-screen school, indicating that race in screen school are more evenly distributed, so more diverse. However, screen school had minority concentration significantly lower than limited on-screen school and an option school, indicating that screen school have lower minority enrollment. No significant difference had been found for two diversity measurements between an option and a limited on-screen school. This may indicate that partially taking into academic. The option school result in the same school racial position as not taking into account academics at all. The limited on-screen school both result in higher minority concentration and lower GV index compared to the screen schools. We're looking into a specific racial groups breakdown of the schools based on the school priorities. Screen schools demonstrate a more uniform racial distribution on their on-screen counterparts, corresponding to their relatively high GV index. On the other hand, the racial composition of the limited on-screen school appears to be less balanced, which may be due to the screen having less control over their omission since it's based on lottery and demonstrated interest of students. Composition of app option is between screen and limited on-screen school. This may be because their method is also considered a hybrid of both. There is a significantly greater white and Asian population in screen school compared to limited on-screen schools. However, there's a significantly smaller Black population in screen school compared to other schools.
Next, we analyzed the relationship between school priorities, racial composition, and student performance. Student performance was quantified using the Global History and Geography Regents exam passing rate and mastery rate. Passing rate is scoring above 65%, and mastery rate is considered scoring above 85%. When looking at the overall student performance, white, Hispanic, and Black populations obtained the highest mastery rate in screen schools. Mean percent of mastery rate significantly higher than ED opt and limited on-screen schools. This data seems reasonable since the screen schools admitted students based on high academic achievement. No significant difference in mean percent mastery was found between ED opt and limited on-screen schools, indicating that not taking into account academics and partially taking into account academics in the admission process may have little to no effect on the student performance. When looking into performance of specific racial groups across different school choices, a trend was shown for minorities and majorities. From the left graph, we can see that the Black population performed significantly better in screened and limited unscreened schools when the Black population within a school was between 0 to 15%. The Black population appears to not benefit from attending schools with moderate to higher Black populations. This conclusion was also drawn when analyzing data for the Hispanic student population. However, the graph on the right shows that in screened schools, the white population performed best when the white population in schools was greater than 50%, indicating that the white population performed better academically with the larger representation of a similar racial group within the school. This trend was also drawn for the Asian population. This might suggest that the relationship between schools' racial composition and students' own race may play a factor in moderating a student's outcome. When factoring socioeconomic factors, we could see that screen schools have the least amount of economic disadvantaged students, while ED op schools have the most. Out of all the economically disadvantaged students, students in screen schools obtain the highest percentage of mastery rate compared to other school choices. Some limitations of this study include a limited sample size of 13 school districts, using only Regents exams from the Global History Regents to evaluate student performance and missing data from the NYSED dataset. In the future, we would like to expand our sample size, use more standardized tests to evaluate student performance, further investigate and use more data as needed to have a stronger statement. After obtaining a stronger conclusion, our results can be used to adjust the school choice process. Necessary school allocation algorithms can then be modified to enhance diversity and overall student performance in New York City public schools. Thank you so much and have a nice day.